Alright, like I mentioned in my other video, when we're going to discuss reloading for any calibers now, especially the ones like this, the 6.5 by 55, instead of saying loading or reloading for, it's going to be load development. Because you should, if you're going to do this, have the basic skills of, sizing, depriming, priming, trimming, pouring powder, seating a bullet, crimping it or not. You should know that already if you're going to attempt this. So to watch me do this in a 15-20 minute video of doing these things and then mumble what powder I'm using and not give any clear, that's not what my goal is. My goal is do this right. People want to know how you get accuracy, how you get performance. It's through load development. So that's what I'm going to title these videos. So in the first video I explain to you about choosing a powder and going through all this information and about pressures and everything else. These older guns, you got to watch the pressures, figure out what to do. And granted, there are a ton of powders you probably have a can of that will work fine and give you halfway decent results in this gun, okay? But I was looking for something a little bit different, all right? Now, the key is do your studying, okay? With this cartridge, okay, the military used, there's 2 or 3 different versions of this. The earlier one was a heavier torpedo bullet, until you got to about World War II, and they went to a Spire Point, I think boat tail, 140 grain bullet. And that's kind of what from World War II until it was phased out when they went into NATO and went to the 308. So, another thing, this 1896 model, okay, and even though they had the Lugeman semi-automatic rifle, they kept the military ammo on the light side, and I believe the velocity on the bullet was about 2,625 feet per second. So they were loading it light to begin with. All right. Granted, this cartridge in a modern gun, you can step it up and get better performance out of it, but that is what a lot of the discussions and forums on hand loading is basically making these hunting rounds, okay, in this caliber, which this is a very popular civilian sporting caliber to this day, in Europe especially, and even in the United States. So, being that we're military collectors, we kind of want to go with a low pressure round that mimics or comes close to replicating what the military used all those years ago. Alright, so that was my goal, and that's what I'm going to start out with. So instead of me going through all this, this is on depriming this and that, I'm taking it into consideration that whoever's watching this already knows how to do that. So now we're going to talk about how to develop a load. And this is what people are not doing right. And this is where I hear these complaints, well, it takes too much time, it's too much money, I don't want to get this powder because I have this powder and I don't want to buy any more and it's too much of a pain in the ass, and and go through a loading manual and find something that's close with powder and the loading manual for this, and then just go with it, and you always hear, well, I get good results. Well, that's fine. If you want to do that, stop watching the video now, okay, because I'm going a little bit deeper, and I will explain to you how it's done, and I'll even give you the powder I'm using here and why I'm using it. Give it a try, and then you go and work up the load yourself, okay? So, when I started off with this, I took an old 40-year-old reloading manual and I went with one powder. It's kind of fast burning. I had good luck with it in the 6.5 Carcano. So I said, let me try it in this. And I did not get good results with a 140 grain bullet. Okay, so I kind of shelved the whole project. Well, and there is another powder. It's an IMR powder. It's pretty good. And the pressure, if you look in a loading manual where they're giving you the pressures, you'll see that the pressure consistently in the different loads is a lot lower. I forget, I think it's 3550 or some IMR. There is an H too, so don't get them mixed up. Okay, whenever, make sure your data. And I believe that's the one I used. I used it in the 6.5 Dutch and got excellent results. I've used it in several. I was going to come back and do it, but in my investigation I was looking around and trying to come up with everything, and I found some data for a powder. Now this is unusual. At one time during one of these crises you couldn't get gunpowder. So I went to the local store and the only thing they had was like 8 jugs of this. And I was trying to reload for the 8mm Lebel. And the only data I can find, published data, had this powder. It was there, I bought it, I used it, it really did not work out well at all. And I did not like the results and shelved this. And really, this IMR 4831, really haven't heard much about it or nothing. So like I said in the first thing, a guy said use this powder or the Hybrid 100, which that is available. But since I already had this, I was going to try it. Okay? And after I did some more research, I found that this runs at a lower pressure, so it'll keep the pressure down. And they said it's consistent and gives good results. So I said, all right. I didn't like the one powder I used, so that shelved. Okay, and that was like 30, 40 bullets and everything used and gone. So started with this one. So I went and got some load data off of loaddata.com. Now you got about 10 choices. Now you got to sit there and go through it. And I found one that must have come out of a loading manual. You'll have some that don't give you. They'll give you a start, or some of them is just something somebody posted with a load and results. I'd stay away from that info. I went there and they had just the basic thing: start load, maximum load, velocity, and they give you the CUP or PSI. So that is listed there. That's where I found some data like that, and that was telling me at the max, I forget, I don't have the paper in front of me, but it was like in the 40s, mid 40s, like 45, 46, so it wasn't up close to the 51,000 PSI or whatever, the limit of this cartridge. So I said, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. So I took the load out. I loaded 8 strings. Okay, I loaded the 8 strings, and I took the time and sat there all morning long and just took my time, shot a few, 5 rounds each charge through the rifle, over the chronograph, into the target. And we'll go to the video of me out on the range at this point in time. Okay, load development. Part of load development, and I've shown you in several other videos, is I got to sit out here and test these loads, working them up slowly, and see what I get. I use that chronograph there to make sure my speed and that's not outside the parameters listed. I use the targets and keep the separate targets to check accuracy-wise. Okay. And the reason I kind of complain is this is not recreation, this is work. Okay, to get this. Now, these Hornady bullets are not inexpensive, and if I do not like the results of this powder, I'm going to have to go try another powder, work up another load, and use 40 more bullets. So I could easily use 100, 200 bullets finding the right charge or working up a load that I'm satisfied with. And so here we go. Alright, that one I got a dupe on, so that's always good when it flashes. It means I got two traveling at the same exact speed. Alright, then go down, change the target, reset the machine, let this thing cool off. I've done 3 strings so far. I have 5 more strings to go. Some of these powders you have to get about 40 rounds out to work it up. And it's also good because then you can see the jumps and that, do the studying and understand more what's going on. It's hard work, but it does pay off in the long run. Hopefully we'll get something with this old rifle that we really like, and then I'll have a load. But I will go over the results in that later on once I go download everything into the computer and examine all my targets, and we'll do a closing on this. But this is my standard load development, even for, you know, non-exotic cartridge like the 6.5 Swedish. I'm going to do the same thing with the 7mm Mauser and the Argentine, and probably eventually we're going to get into the Swiss straight pulls, 7 point, whatever that is. So after my range time, then I have to come back and download all the information from the chronograph and get a printed report on there. Now, chronographs, if you're serious about reloading, they only cost around $100 or so. There's 2 or 3 different models, but the basic ones might even be under $100. There's another one that's a little bit more simpler than mine, but I like mine because it works well. It does. They will get kind of weird after a while and not work right, and there's some screw ups in there, but I think you got a lifetime warranty. You just send it back to the factory and they'll get it good as new. So I went and ran it, and using this powder I was really amazed because I've used several different powders and have done this technique, but I got results that were extremely unusual with this powder. And what it was is, in the course of these strings, I'll count them up. I think there was 3 or 4 of these strings were out of the 5 shots. I had 3 cartridges that had identical velocity, and this was repeated in stages. Now I've come to where I get, you know, when developing a load, you get all this different variations, and then you'll see it tighten down, and you know, I'd get 2 repeaters or something. You know, I've never had 3 repeaters, like 3 or 4 out of 3 or 4 strings. So each different varying charge was giving me repeating identical velocities, which I've never had this since I've been using a chronograph for 5 years. I've never seen this until I did it with this powder. So what does that tell you? Well, it looks like you got the right blend and everything heading into this cartridge. Now, another thing you gotta, say I take this powder, go with a similar powder. I'm going to try using this in a 7mm Mauser. A little bit different size of the case, bullet, all this other stuff. It may not do this. I'm going to see if this reacts the same way with a 7mm Mauser load. So, okay, so what do we find? Now let's go over the results. But like I said, this is unusual and it's a good sign. Okay, consistency is what we're looking for. Alright, I'm going to go look at my targets, and we're going to review them. I'm going to pick a charge, okay, and then I'm going to go and load some ammo, like 50 rounds. And what I'm going to do next week, when I get time in a week or 2, is take the 3 rifles out. I have 3 different rifles. I have the load I just developed. I have, I think, 20 cartridges of a load that I made up because I had some leftover brass or something. I think I loaded 20 rounds of that just for sale at the flea market, and I got 10 rounds of commercial ammo, what I think were a little bit lighter bullet. And we'll see what they all shoot out of the gun. So let's go over our results in the target area. Alright, I have the targets laid out on this table. There were 8 strings of 5 rounds each, and they were increased in increments of 1/2 thousandths until the last two. There's 3/10 thousandths between the increase and then the final high charge, or the maximum charge. So what I've done here is I've recorrected this. What I have is, I'll show you how many we had at first, the 2 repeaters. In other words, 2 of the results are identical. And it started with 2 on the minimum. Second, third string had 2 identical. And the very last string, string 8, had 2 identical. Now 7 and 5 had 3 cartridges that had identical velocities, which that's what I never seen, and I've never seen results like this where I was getting 2 cartridges. That's usually when you get close to a good load or your pet load, you're going to get 2 of them that repeat. Okay, that's happened like in a string like this, and maybe 1 or 2 you get 2 identical, but this was highly unusual results to have 3 of them with 2 and 2 of them with 3 identical velocities. So this is very stable, and kind of that's how you use the chronograph to see very consistent loads. And now we'll go over velocities and look at the groups. Alright, this is string 1, and this had a repeater in there, and I believe that's 2 holes in the one, or 2 bullets in the 1 hole. Okay, then string 2, not so hot. Okay, string 3, this had 2 of them with the same velocity. Notice the group's a little tighter, but still you had them flyers. And string 4. Now we're starting to get where we're getting a decent group, if you notice. Okay, and 4 did not have any repeaters in it. So that's the first 4 of them. Okay, this is number 5, string 5, and this has a triple repeaters. And again, 2 bullets in 1 hole, 5 shots. Getting a little better. Now this one had no repeats at all. This is string 6, and not a shabby looking group as we go. As you see, they're kind of getting a little bit tighter. 7 has another 3 repeaters, 3 velocities identical, and kind of close. 1 flyer. Could have been me. And then last but least, and this had 2 duplicate velocities, pretty good, and that's at the max suggested. So going by the groups, you can't tell. These upper 4 all look real good. And next thing I would do is go over the numbers and see which one has the smallest spread. Since, well, how it'll all work is this one here I think is the best numbers wise. It's 3 of them the same velocity. Standard deviation I think is a single digit. So this would probably be the load to use. Okay, so when it comes down to the numbers, standard deviation, and I'm going to go with this load. Also, this is exactly 100 feet per second faster than what they list the military load at. So I'm going to go with this. Because of all the factors combined. And hopefully, you know, this is open sights and a bolt action rifle off a rest, so that's the load we're going to go with. Alright, so now that I've shown you my results, I've given you a powder and an idea of where to find the load data and sort it all out for yourself. Now I've given you all the basic tools you need to go out and develop a load that's to your liking. So I hope you use the information well and have good luck. I will load up some of these that I chose and match it against my ammo in the match it against some other types of ammunition in the 3 different rifles here in the next coming few weeks. And then hopefully, depending on my workload or what's going on here, I mean it's insane. I'm busy as ever. I may go into the 7mm for all those Spanish Mausers out there and that, and I do have a 93 to try it out at, a good one. The 98s, you know, you get the 08 models and that, you know, the 98s and the 7mm can handle a pretty steep load. Okay, so that's the other thing about that. You have so many variances in the different rifles that were still manufactured for years after the 98 was developed. But hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned, and we'll try to get more load development videos up here as we go along.